Hello there. Welcome to lecture 7 of the day trading model. This lecture is going to be about risk management. This lecture is going to contain by far one of the most important components of this whole lecture series. This lecture will dive deeper into the concept of managing risk, trading positions, managing these positions, managing our own psychology, and managing our own mindset. First of all, I must give you a risk disclaimer. TOTK, or the ones that know, is solely an educational platform. This means that all the information and knowledge that gets shared throughout this lecture series is meant purely for educational and/or entertainment purposes only. If you want to read the full risk disclaimer and terms of services that you agreed upon when signing up for the mentorship, you can do so on theonesthatknow.com. We will first take a look at the table of contents. First of all, we're going to speak about risk management from a technical stance. This means that we're going to take a look at some technical chart-related risk management tips. Secondly, we're going to take a look at psychological risk management, meaning how we handle risk management from a psychological stance. This will be the focus of this lecture. So let us take a look at the technical aspect of risk management. First of all, we must determine the following. What leads you to take a trade? What is your protocol? If there is no protocol in place, if there are no rule-based systems in place that make you decide whether or not you want to be a buyer or seller, you are gambling. You are gambling, and you are already starting out on a loss when it comes to risk management. Because in order for someone to manage risk effectively and accordingly, they must have rules to adhere to. And if these rules are not present, then you're just basically getting thrown around by IBDA. Secondly, the next question that has to be answered is what invalidates your idea? From what moment on is your trade or trade idea no longer valid? These are questions that you need to be able to answer right away when they pop up. If you do not have your model yet, you're probably listening to this and you're like, yeah, the answer is still no. It's because you don't have a model yet. However, for the people that do think they have a model, but are not able to answer these questions directly within a short period of time, that means that the model is not understood properly yet or isn't even defined properly yet. And of course, it is also possible to know what validates the idea. How do you know whether or not your idea is likely to play out? What variables can you add to that? We will all discuss it during this lecture. First of all, we can take a look at institutional order flow confirming being drawn to one level, meaning that we have established that there's a clear point A where a run begins from and a terminus, point B, is present. In a chart within a buy program, this looks like the following. Point A is down here. This is where the buy program began. And point B is where the buy program is likely to end. This is our draw liquidity. And to confirm that the order flow is being drawn to that level at point B, we can take a look at how every single expansion retracement is followed by a new expansion leg. Every retracement is of course into a discount of that current range, and then the market continues higher because it's drawn towards a price level above current market price. This is what validation of a buy program looks like. Validation of a buy program can, however, also look like the following, where there is an expansion followed by a retracement followed by an expansion, and the market just goes sideways. As long as it does not displace to the downside, we can anticipate higher prices to be next. And therefore, that is what we mean with IOF confirming being drawn to a specific level. Because if price would begin to displace, for example, below this row, why specifically that row? Because that row retraced into this expansion leg right here, that could signal a change in the state of delivery. And therefore, this is how we confirm one-sided institutional order flow when bullish. When bearish, point A is up here and point B is down here. The institutional order flow that is one-sided is bearish, and it occurs from this price level, which is point A, and it goes towards point B. Every single expansion leg lower is followed by a retracement higher, followed by an expansion, etc. The moment that price would displace above a high that got created here, that set up an expansion leg, we would have to be careful with thinking that point B is likely to be reached. However, this is also the way that the schematic can look, where we see an expansion, retracement, expansion, consolidation. And again, as long as price does not displace above this high which set up this expansion, there is nothing to worry about. And order flow is confirming that it is likely to be bearish and that we're likely to draw lower. And the moment that order flow would, for example, displace to the upside, meaning that we would see a displacement above a high that set up an expansion leg, then we had to be cautious, because then we would have to consider the possibility of our idea of point A being the inception of a run towards point B being wrong. And if we see those signs that confirm that we're wrong, we need to get out and we need to accept the fact that our analysis was offside, and we then gotta move on towards the next opportunity. We're now going to take a look at invalidations in the form of institutional order flow changing against our direction that we were anticipating. If we anticipate that this point A was going to set up a run towards point B, and we begin to see the falling occur, then we are wrong with our analysis. Meaning, if we anticipated the sell side of the curve to turn into the buy side of the curve from point A, and the market begins to expand, it retraces and it expands, but it fails to find support, so to say, inside of the range from this low to high, and it displaces lower, then we know we need to get out, because institutional order flow is not confirming bullish order flow. The reason why this is not occurring is because point A was not the real point of interest from where a buy program was likely to unfold from. So when we see that price displaces below this low, that's an exit. That means that we can trail or stop aggressively, because we already know that if price was going to continue higher, it would have formed a shallow retracement here, and then boom, there it would have gone. And by managing our positions like this, by allowing for very specific signatures to occur, we know that when these signatures do not occur, so it means when the order flow is not supporting the idea that price is going to continue to expand higher, then we know that we're offside, and therefore we know that our stop loss is likely to get hit. And that doesn't mean that our stop would have to remain here if we entered inside of this retracement leg, and our stop would have to remain here. No, why not? Because if we know that this displacement leg lower should not have occurred, the moment that price really displaces below this low on the lower time frames, means that we can already get out and save equity. And now the thing that the majority of traders might think when they heard that is the following: but what if it takes out the low and then goes? So what? So what? Doesn't it mean that you can't re-enter? There will be a new retracement leg after an expansion leg higher, right? Why are you scared of entering at exiting positions? Because if you are asking that question there, it first of all showcases FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want to miss out on a move. And secondly, you do not understand yet that whenever you see the market take you out of a position, you can always re-enter if your idea isn't really invalidated just yet. So that means that if we see, for example, this low get ran, turtle supercure, meaning sells at liquidity get purged, market immediately reverts higher, and then expands above the CBs that form inside of this leg, and we see a BC form, that retracement leg is a buy opportunity to go higher. So are you seeing how there are rules on top of rules, and it is so advanced? And by listening to me explain this simple breakdown right here, by simply looking at a chart, no write-ups or anything, you are learning, and you are learning rapidly. So let us take a look at the bearish example in which we had a point A right here, from where we were anticipating the buy side of the curve to turn into the sell side of the curve towards point B. And what we see is that the market expands lower, retraces, expands, and then it reverses. It displaces to the upside above this high. What did I just explain to you? When a high gets formed that gets utilized for an expansion leg lower, that high should not get violated above or should not get displaced above if the smart money reversal is in fact in. So that means that the moment that price displaced above this high, we need to be careful with thinking whether or not point A was really where the SMR was going to take place from. Because if it didn't, then it was just engineering of buy side liquidity to be targeted inside this run higher. Let's say that the market trades above this high here and it immediately rejects it. It soups it, so to say. And it then begins to displace lower. There's always a new entry opportunity for you. So my advice to you would be, investigate whether or not there's any validity about what I'm saying right here when it comes to gouging order flow, when it comes to getting a feeling for how price is delivering. It is so simple when you understand it. It is so easy and practical when you understand the logic that I just described to you. And I explained it over very simple charts. But when you study my breakdowns, when you study all of my reviews, this is how I try to break down price to you. Because trading is easy. You are the one that is adding complication to it. And that's a topic that we will discuss during the psychology part of this lecture, which is where I want to put the emphasis. And you might be thinking, risk management, why are we speaking about invalidations, confirmations, whatever? It's because risk management isn't just a calculation of how much RR can I make, or how much money can I make from this trade, or how much money can I lose from this trade. That's the most simplest form of risk management. And that's the monetary side of things. That's the equity side of things. And that's very important to know and to have rules for. But it is not something that none of you should be worried about right now. Because you're not at the stage, likely yet, where you should even consider trying to trade with real money. Because you don't understand the technicals yet and you don't understand yourself yet. So to then try and go out there and follow some rules that I would share with you when it comes to, oh, this is how much you can risk, this is how much you can risk per position, this is what happens when you win, this is what happens when you lose, would be dangerous. Because then you would go out there and you would think, well, this is what he said, and you're not going to focus on the protocol, you're going to instead focus on what is there to gain, what is there to lose. And it is not how I want you to think, and it's not how I'm training you to think. I'm training you to think by simply one rule. and it is following the protocol. And the protocol consists of so many different rules and it is so advanced, but at the same time very simple. So let us take a look at psychology. These markets are programmed to play in on your weaknesses as a human. This means that you as a human possess weaknesses that the market will seek to exploit, or I should say, the algorithms that are in control of price are trying to exploit you. And they do this by making use of the weaknesses that every single one of us possess. In order to become aware of our weaknesses, I'm going to share a list of potential weaknesses that you might be struggling with. For example, we can be fearful, we can be emotional, we can be impulsive, we can be overconfident, we can be greedy. These weaknesses get played in upon to make us do stupid shit. The money in the market moves from the gamblers to the professionals. So if we know that, if we have now defined what weaknesses are out there that we could be struggling with, we must learn how this money transfer from the gamblers to the professionals occurs. And the way that this works is through the following. A gambler is driven by emotion. He is driven by all of these basic character traits that can influence his decision making process. The pros, however, know that if they let their emotions influence their decision making processes behind the charts, that they will do harm to themselves. And therefore, they understand that structure has to be put into place, or a system has to be put into place that can save them, that can basically guard them to prevent them from doing those stupid things. Because the gamblers will keep on pushing it. They will keep on going out there and they think they're following their model. They think they're doing everything right, but all they're doing is simply projecting their own feelings onto the marketplace. Whilst that is not the way that you can objectively internalize what price, what IPTA is telling you, whether or not the institutional order flow is still on your side or whether or not it is changing. And I know that some of you are probably listening to me speak and reading through this list and are probably thinking, damn, this hits home. Yes, that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. Because when you feel like that and when you are aware of these character traits that are hindering your performance, that are hindering your development as a trader, you can change them. You can go out there and you can look for ways to learn how to deal with that behavior. Because the emotions will stay, but the behavior around those emotions or that originates from those emotions can be changed. That can be adjusted. It can be limited. There can be a structure or a system that says, okay, whenever I feel this, I don't do that. Whenever I feel that way, I do that. And during this lecture, I'm going to share with you rules of engagement and disengagement that will help you within that process. It's important to note that I will just share examples. I will just share schematics. The only way to control our flaws is by putting systematic rules in place. These systematic rules get put into place through journaling and realizing what repeating behavior has to be adjusted. Look, journaling is by far one of the best things that every single trader can do if they are still trying to figure out who they are as a trader, what is working, what isn't working, the technical side of things, but also who am I? How do I behave? How do I react to certain things? How does that influence my decision making process, etc.? That is where journaling plays a crucial role to determine answers to those questions. Because through the answers to those questions, you will be able to learn to master yourself. and that mastering takes place through the implementation of systems. Let's take a look at rules of engagement and rules of disengagement, because those are the systematic rules that I'm referring to. Here we can see an example of rules of engagement. Please do not be scared by all of the boxes and lines out there. What we can see is that, first of all, this is where the whole schematic begins. The first question that is being asked within this schematic or protocol for rules of engagement is the following. Am I noticeably worrying about something? Meaning, is there something on my mind right now that is controlling my thoughts? That's the only thing I can focus on. If there is, I will walk away from this charge. Because if I do not, then I can't be purely focused on the charts because in my mind I'm somewhere else. If I'm not worrying about something, the next question that is being present is the following. Am I in a calm state of mind? No. No trading. Walk away. If I am, however, in a calm state of mind, I can open up the charts and run the technical process, meaning the technical protocol. Look for this, 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 this. This is of course not important right now since we're focusing on the psychology, but this is where that technical process comes in play. The technical checks get made and the main question get asked. Is there anything in the current market environment which I can deem as high probable? If there is, I will continue. If there isn't, I will walk away and reassess because I know that a high probable environment will come again, and that's the environment in which I want to push it. I do not want to push it in a low probability environment. So let's say that there is a high probability environment. The next step is the following. The technical edge that I am in possession of, my model, will be looked after. If a setup is present, I will trade it. However, if there are any doubts about the setup, I do not take it. If there is no setup present, I wait or walk away. Eventually, after the trade gets taken, I will log the outcome. These are all the rules that are present within this example of rules of engagement. This is of course a very simplistic schematic. The questions are rather simple and rather short in its totality. It can be made way more advanced, but I hope that this example has given you an insight on how you can create basically your own process for rules of engagement. It all begins by asking questions to yourself and offering two options: yes or no. Highly probable, yes or no. Do I feel well? Yes or no. Am I in the right state of mind? Yes or no. And then for each option, there will be follow-up steps. Do this or do that. Don't do this and don't do that. And by doing so, you can objectify your process. So I made the schematic with Miro.com. I would highly suggest you to take a look at it if you're going to try and make your own schematic like this. Here we can see the example of the rules of disengagement. What we can see is that the rules of disengagement example schematic is very similar to the rules of engagement schematic. However, some boxes have been made gray to showcase that this is a disengagement that's taking place. What we see is that all the way until the box that signals or showcases that a trade is being taken, everything is the same as the previous slide. When we study what occurs after the box that signals trade, we can see the following. The main question that we need to ask ourselves when being inside of every position or any position, I should say, is IBDA supporting your idea? Is price showing a willingness to expand away from your entry towards the anticipated draw liquidity? Meaning, is IBDA showing to you that you are in sync, that you are on the right track? If it isn't signaling that, if the answer to that question, which is highlighted or made bold, is no, then you manage your trade aggressively, meaning you look for signs that could constitute to IBDA being bullish, for example, if we're anticipating higher prices. However, if there are signs present that signal that it might go lower, that it might reverse, that the order flow might change towards sell side liquidity, then we need to be managing our positions aggressively and cutting our losses tight soon. Let's say that we do see IBDA supporting our idea. What we then do is that we remain in until the draw on the liquidity gets reached and we partial there or we close the position fully. Either how, we log the outcome of what happened. Logging or journaling is by far one of the most important things that you can do because it showcases to you how many times something occurs and something plays out. The second question that's impossible to ask yourself whilst being inside of a trade is the following. Are you fearful or anxious whilst being in a position or in the position? If you are, you need to cut the position and read the tape. Log the outcome. If you aren't, then this question is irrelevant and we focus on the main question at hand, which is the recognition of institutional order flow. Because if you can recognize institutional order flow changing or shifting, so to say, then you can manage your positions aggressively and you can say, well, there are signs present that can make it go up or down. This is not highly probable. Therefore, you should walk away. Again, this schematic was just an example, so please start making your own schematics when it comes to rules of engagement and rules of disengagement. Now notice that everything here was purely meant for basically the way that you act and the way that you behave as a trader. However, these type of schematics work perfectly as well when it comes to developing your own technical approach if you do not have one just yet. Handling losses. Losses are a result of us being wrong with our analysis and the market not delivering to our anticipations. This means that a loss can never be the fault of the market. This means that every single loss is your responsibility and your fault. You made an analysis, you put on a trade, and the market showed to you that you were wrong by taking you out for a loss. And you can't be scared of realizing that loss. You can't be hoping that the market will get back to break even so that you can get out of your loss at break even. When the market reaches your invalidation level, you are out. And you accept that. And you submit to time and more data to see if your analysis was really wrong or if your trade management was wrong. It is good that we take losses and that we get taken out of our positions because our analysis was offside and therefore we need to be away from risk. We need to be away from the place where we can lose equity when we know that the environment is not according to what we anticipated. A good loss takes place when you follow your rules of engagement and disengagement. A bad loss takes place when you did not follow your protocol and therefore did something that was not according to your rules and you took an unrequired loss. Because during this lecture, I've already said it multiple times, following your protocol is the number one thing that you should be worried about and that you even should be caring about. Because if you follow your protocol and you know that your protocol contains an edge that you know to be true due to your own historical market data research, your backtesting, and your tape reading, etc., you know that not following that edge is not smart. Therefore, I want to give you a psychology conclusion. Because within this relatively boring lecture, I've shared very important topics and insights with you. And to conclude, it all begins with not acting like a fool. It all begins with simply submitting to time and price in accordance with your protocol. Anything beyond that is dumb. If you take trades outside of your times of interest, outside of your time windows, the times that you are looking at the markets or should be looking at the markets, what are you doing? If you are a New York trader, why are you looking at Asia? Commit to following the protocol day in, day out, and success will arrive one day. You should make it an obligation to follow the protocol. And you should check with yourself at the end of each day whether or not you followed the protocol or you slacked off. You need to be brutally honest with yourself because that's the only way to grow and develop. You need to journal everything. And you journal everything in a private manner, meaning you hold your own private journal. And that is your best friend. You share everything with it. And by writing stuff down, by writing things down, you can learn from those experiences. And you will also be able to forgive yourself if you did something stupid. Because you said, okay, well, I did not follow the protocol. I did not do what I was supposed to do. I just wasn't there today. And then you accept that, then you move on. You don't dwell upon it. You write it down and it ends right there. Because if you would dwell on it, then you would automatically cause emotion that would influence you the next trading session or day. So think back to the weaknesses that we as humans possess that I outlined earlier during this lecture and how they get utilized or exploited to extract money from the gamblers to the professionals. So I want to give you some homework with regards to everything that was discussed during this lecture. However, before I do so, I want to share with you that I will be speaking about equity management. I will be speaking about how to actually manage positions over a longer period of time. However, I came to the conclusion after planning for this lecture that it would have been better to simply focus on the technicals and the psychology side of things. Because if I would have now shared with you, okay, we're now going to discuss the equity management, we're now going to discuss the percentages game, we're now going to discuss how much we can risk and how much we can win. After I had shared the technical important knowledge and secondly the psychological insights, you would forget about those two because you would only think about the numbers. Oh, he says you can make $2,000 if you risk 1,000 or $3,000 if you risk 1,000 on demo accounts, of course. But you get my point. That's for another day. That's when you're ready. That's for when I have shared what I wanted to share and when I believe that I have given you enough to build your own protocol completely. And when you get to that stage, the equity management will be the cherry on the top. And it will be the most important thing on the cake. So let us take a look at the homework for this lecture. I want you to begin journaling your thoughts and feelings throughout the day, and especially your pre-market thoughts and feelings. Think back to the protocol example for the rules of engagement that was provided during this lecture. It begins by asking questions. And by asking questions to yourself that you can easily answer each day, you can see or you can test how you're feeling. I want you to also begin journaling your thoughts and feelings during the trading day. Either, for example, right before you put on a trade, right after you exit the trade, or even whilst you're in the trade. Because by doing so, you're able to see how you're speaking to yourself. Is it a positive inner dialogue or is it a negative inner dialogue? Is the inner dialogue, for example, held by fear or is it held by confidence or controlled by confidence, I must say? I want you to begin journaling the outcomes to your trades. This speaks for itself if you aren't doing that yet. Your trades being, of course, demo trades, non-financial advice over here. And I want you to begin reflecting on those journals every single week to see if there are any repeating phenomena that have to be tackled. These phenomena get tackled by putting systems into place. I want to thank you for watching this lecture all the way to the end. I know this was probably one of the most boring lectures thus far within the whole model series. However, it is by far one of the most important components to this lecture series. I wish you all the best and I look forward to speaking with you next week. And I'm not disclosing yet what I have in store for next week. Be safe.